A minister has been criticised for saying it's morally wrong for homeowners to pay tradesmen and women in cash. Treasury Minister David Gauke said cash-in-hand jobs came at a big cost to the economy. Sky's business correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports.
The government's latest target for tax avoidance is, well, pretty much all of us. But you'll be hard-pushed to find a trader who cannot speak from experience. Like Sam, a roofer enjoying some rare sunshine on the job, but a fully paid-up member of the so-called black economy. Do you take cash in hand?
Occasionally, yes.
Why?
The customer wants to deal that way, then we can do that.
And it benefits the customer because he or she gets a cheaper job?
Yep.
But it benefits you because you don't pay the tax?
Yep. Both parties.
But that's wrong?
Yes, you're right.
Shouldn't you be saying no to the customer?
In an ideal world, yeah, I suppose I should, but it doesn't work like that.
How much money do you make a year through cash in hand?
It's hard to say. It could be £2 grand, maybe less, you know.
Do you reckon you'd lose jobs if
Yes.
you didn't take cash in hand?
Yes, yeah, I definitely think I would.
The most recent figures, which were compiled in 2010, show that £35 billion in tax was unpaid. That's the equivalent of 8% of all tax due. HMRC estimate that £4 billion is lost to what is known as the hidden economy, although it's frankly almost impossible to calculate. And to put that into some context, worldwide, it's thought that £13 trillion is lost through unpaid tax each year. But the opposition point out that as long as there are loopholes, there will always be some who continue to exploit them, and it is therefore the government's job to stop.
The job of government is to pass the right laws to clamp down on tax avoidance. And that is the most important thing of all. And what I would be saying to the government is that they should be clamping down on the large-scale tax avoidance, which has been reeled only in the past few days. And I think that's what people want to see from the government.
The public naming and shaming of Jimmy Carr last month, egged on indeed by the Prime Minister, did to a point achieve the sort of moral outrage that the government was looking for. It's hard to feel sorry for a millionaire comedian paying just 1% tax. But stigmatising people who innocently pay for the odd job with cash is unlikely to receive much sympathy.
I think the government should mind their own business. However, it is morally wrong, so people should not do it.
They're so morally wrong in many other ways that I don't pay much attention to what the government tells me.
Well, that's very difficult, isn't it? But I would have thought that it was not right.
Most of people do it, yes. So what can happen about it?
By targeting small traders as they have, the government will be mindful of this becoming a class issue. But unless the law is changed, it will forever rely, as it always has done, on individual and, of course, moral judgments. And that is a very ineffective way of tax collection. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News.
We've been joined by Jonathan Holden, Vice President of cleaning firm Maid, and the LBC radio presenter and business specialist James Max. Hello to you both. The majority of people would say they have paid someone cash in hand at some point. Is it morally wrong, Jonathan?
I think the number of people are no different than anybody else. I think if we haven't been paying cash in hand, we've certainly thought about it, many of us. What's important right now is we take the responsible approach to make sure that we support the government right now and paying what we should be paying and charging what we should be charging.
What do you think, James? Is it immoral?
I don't think it's immoral to use cash in hand, and I think what we're seeing is that the person who decided to make this comment was one of the individuals who claimed for stamp duty on their property from the taxpayer. They didn't want to pay it themselves for their second home. Yes, of course, at the time they were able to do so. And then suddenly talks about morality. I find the whole focus of this is utterly and completely wrong. That we're going to see people, for whatever reason, not being able to use cash, not being able to pay people when they want to, it's down to the individual who is receiving the cash to have the responsibility. It is their morality that is not paying the tax. It's not the morality of the individual who is paying it. Now, it is a question of degree. So, for example, if your builder comes along and says, OK, I'll give you a discount, and you're trying to avoid paying VAT, then you are complicit as an individual.
If I can say, certainly in our industry, in the cleaning industry, the industry is worth £1.6 billion in the UK. Some 98% of that is actually worked by the black market, the underground economy, not paying taxes.
But is it up to me, who employs a cleaner, for example, to make sure I'm not paying cash in hand, or is it up to the cleaner to make sure they're paying their tax? So James is saying it's not up to the individual.
It's up to the cleaner.
I think first of all it's important the business actually does what's rightfully correct to actually pay the taxes. It's up to the government to legislate and to monitor those businesses. And it's up for everybody collectively. We're all in it together.
Well, no, hang on a second. That's nonsense. No, all you're arguing is you're saying that you're a big cleaning company and you'd like everybody to pay the taxes so that you can level your playing field. The fact is that when you start to look at it, what happens? When you are employing people, you're stripping out money that's going directly to them. And what we want to make sure is that we don't somehow sort of have some kind of moral crusade that stops individuals who are very low earners from going out and doing it. It is, of course, their responsibility to pay tax.
I think it's very important that we all have a part to play here, the consumer, the business and the government. Because the more money we put into the economy, the more money we can actually take out. And actually the more taxes are available to pay for all the services that we take for granted.
Isn't there a convenience factor here, though? Because we're often talking about fairly small sums of money. We're not talking about large sums of cash being exchanged. And the tax system is so complicated.
It is complicated, but collectively, the underground economy and the cleaning industry is potentially not actually declaring up to £500 million worth of tax revenue, which the government would love to have.
Ergo, you're fighting for yourself.
That's a lot of money that could be plugging
Absolutely.
for
But
deficit.
again, ergo, you are fighting for yourselves and your business. But here's the problem.
For the government.
Yeah, well, the government need to fight properly. And what they need to do is they need to have a look at the tax system and start dealing top down. It's too complicated. It doesn't deal with the big industries that are avoiding paying tax. It doesn't level the tax playing field for individuals and for companies. It's way too legislative heavy in terms of the sorts of things that you have to organise, and I'm sorry, it's a mess.
But wouldn't it be interesting if the government looked at what's a system that's working out in Sweden right now, whereby there's tax relief for skilled workers to go back to work, and actually there's tax relief then to use legitimate services around the house.
Let's overcomplicate our tax system even more, shall we?
But what happens is the business gets to work, the individuals get tax relief, and the government get their revenues. Everybody wins. It's a win-win.
If we stop, it's not a win-win. If we stop this nonsense,
all three parties have actually benefited from it.
If we stop this nonsense, where companies are paying too much tax to employ people, where it's too complicated to organise the system that we have, where we have tax rates that are politically motivated rather than really sensible, then if we reduced all of that and simplified the system, more people will pay tax, we'll raise more money, and let's all move on.
I think everybody has a responsibility. Molly Maid is legitimate. We have a 1,000-strong workworkforce. We pay our taxes. We pay our PAYE registered. We pay our national insurance. We do our bit for the economy.
Do your staff get as much as the individuals who are working in it for themselves?
They are paid more because they actually work very hard. We make sure our staff are really well looked after. We have loyal staff.
Are they really paid better than the individual who goes off and does it themselves?
Really? Their way of
really?
Yes, really.
So that means that your customers are being taken to the cleaners because they're having to pay more.
No,
so somebody's having to pay for it. Who's having to pay for it?
They're paying a quality service.
Is this a priority for the government, though? I mean, should we not be looking more at corporate tax avoidance and something that affects the ordinary person?
This is an absolute distraction.
There's a responsibility, say, for all three parties. Businesses to pay what they should be paying and declaring what they should be declaring. Government to monitor and actually make sure business is doing that. And as the customer as well, sure, yeah, we're all in it together. No, we all benefit from the taxes that are raised.
Please stop using that dreadful phrase that has been much maligned and overused.
But there is a point there, isn't there? Because we all need that money that goes into the Treasury.
But what we need to do...
We complain police on the streets. We complain there aren't enough services. Therefore, we have to make sure...
So what the government have done, and what this comment is doing, is really attacking those who are least able to defend themselves. What I'm saying is, why don't we take a look at our tax system? Why are people doing this? They're doing it because the system is too complicated. They're doing it because we are not monitoring individuals and putting the moral responsibility on the right individuals. As somebody who is self-employed, it is my moral responsibility to make sure I pay my tax. It is not those who contract me to make sure that I'm doing it.
Jonathan, one final point from you. If the cash-in-hand process was stopped, if this was outlawed, would more jobs be created, do you think?
Well, absolutely. If the Swedish model is anything to work by, there's potentially £250,000 of legitimate jobs to be raised in the UK. They've brought all their underground market up above market.
How are we going to pay for these things? Are we going to use the cheque
by making sure that the tax relief is there to encourage more work in the workforce.
Where the credit card companies take.
So yes.
No.
Jonathan Holden, James Max, thank you. Well, Britain will have to wait a little bit